Hello and welcome back to my in-depth Blu-ray review of Arrow Films' release of Koyaanisqatsi and Powaqqatsi. And now this part will be part 2. I'll be talking about the second film in the series and the second film in the box set, and it is Powaqqatsi. Now the movie itself is a lot different from Koyaanisqatsi. There's many different kind of themes that run through both movies. For me, I kind of think Koyaanisqatsi, it was a lot stronger than Powaqqatsi. Powaqqatsi had a completely different kind of range of visuals and a completely different soundtrack, but again done by Philip Glass and again directed by Godfrey Reggio. It's the same team, and it was released in 1988, which I believe was, let's do some math here, 5 years after the release, the general release of Koyaanisqatsi. And actually Philip Glass was a lot more instrumental, in the making of this film, because he actually travelled with Godfrey Reggio onto the locations he was filming at, you know, to kind of develop the music simultaneously, which is not usually how it works. But after they developed their relationship working on Koyaanisqatsi, Philip Glass came on as, you know, a full-time, you know, collaborator, and just, you know, being there, not on set but on location, and, you know, kind of providing ideas and bouncing ideas off each other, that kind of thing. So I think that's really cool, and I think the score is probably the strongest thing in the film. You could probably say that of Koyaanisqatsi as well, but I thought the visuals in Koyaanisqatsi were just so varied and so interesting, and they are in Powaqqatsi as well, but I just felt like the overall themes that ran through Koyaanisqatsi were more powerful and more accessible to me than in Powaqqatsi. Now you could look at Koyaanisqatsi as kind of the northern hemisphere, you know, the developed world, and you could look at Powaqqatsi as the underdeveloped world, or not. Or you could look at it as the world as it always has been for humans, and, you know, our race and mankind, and it just goes back to that kind of primal thing of just fending for yourself. And again, it just shows a lot of these kind of third world countries down in, you know, Southern America, you know, poverty-stricken places at times, you know, in like Africa and all sorts of different countries like that. And actually Godfrey Reggio was criticised by kind of romanticising poverty, you know, kind of almost putting his camera on these people and making it seem like, look, these people live a much simpler life and maybe a better life, but that's not what his point was. He had a much more complex point, which I won't bother going into, because, you know, even I don't understand some of the things that you could kind of take from this film, because it was hard for me to analyse, because I was just sitting there just enjoying the scenery. It's all just lush, beautiful kind of landscapes, and small, intimate kind of places of the world as well, with these small communities of people who, yeah, are living in poverty at times, but also there's just this sense of wonder in them, and you know, maybe not. I mean, you know, you can always look into something that's been filmed and you can read into it more than what it actually is, but for me, you know, it just seemed like there was something to be said about looking at people who live that kind of simpler life, or live a life that kind of, you know, takes us back to humanity and, you know, where we began, or at least where we were for a very long time, you know, in the northern hemisphere. And it's a very interesting look at the world. If you look at Koyaanisqatsi and Powaqqatsi one after another, it gives you a complete view of the entire world, at least at that time in the 80s. And it's very interesting. It's very interesting. The music, I thought, was fantastic. More repetitive than it was in Koyaanisqatsi, but that almost made it more powerful. It just kept bringing you back to that theme that's just so fantastic, that opens the film and is prevalent throughout the film. There's some fantastic shots in this. There's this great tracking shot of all these kids, and it just goes to all their faces, and it just seems to go on forever, and there's a different look behind every set of eyes, and it's just so, it draws you in so much. You know, it's more of the human element than there is in Koyaanisqatsi. So I guess maybe your preference of film over Koyaanisqatsi and Powaqqatsi really comes down to who you are as a person, and maybe that is telling to me that I'm more of a kind of technological person, or I'm more someone who kind of, you know, looks at things in a different way. I don't know. I mean, at this point, I'm just waxing bullshit at this point, but it's an interesting film for sure, and it's got some amazing visuals. There's a fantastic shot of these guys just rigging up this homemade kind of sail on a boat on a river, and when it inflates, it's just like you can see it's been stitched together with like countless blankets at odd ends. There's patches in it, there's holes in it, there's flaps in it, and it just, there was something about it that was quite beautiful and just kind of spoke to me in some way I can't even describe. And there was a shot of a train going past, and it just kept on going and going and going, getting faster and faster and faster, and it was a hypnotic shot. And but we also see the impact of the northern hemisphere on the southern hemisphere, in that we see all this beautiful, you know, nature and people just living out, you know, on their own, and fending for themselves, and by all, you know, in some cases it seems they're happy living that simpler life, a simpler way of life. Again, that goes back to Qatsi, way of life. And but then it kind of, you seep into like then these places with the impact of the northern hemisphere, the impact of the Western world coming down and building on top of this, you know, with the skyscrapers coming into these kinds of places, and you just see all these high-rise blocks in like in one of these kind of southern countries. You see like the cities becoming more crowded and you know, populated, and it's just it's a very interesting commentary on life in general and the way that everything affects each other. And again, as with Koyaanisqatsi, you can take it any way you want, and you can read things into it that maybe other people wouldn't. So that's the beauty of it. For me, I don't think this packed as powerful a punch as Koyaanisqatsi, but I still thought it was a fantastic movie, and it's a bit longer as well. There's another fantastic shot actually of this family walking past this wall with a big kind of graffiti across it, and the family walk past except for the little daughter, who kind of stops and turns and looks at the camera, and it's a slow motion shot, and it's really quite beautiful. Again, just to go back to that word. And this one, it is more about slow motion. There's some great slow motion shots in this. You kind of say Koyaanisqatsi's main kind of deal was the time-lapse footage. This was kind of more slow motion, just life and people and, you know, nature, and then the effect that you know, each has on each other, I think. Yeah, score was great. Again, there was something else. Oh, there you go. I've got the menu up on the TV. The opening of the movie, we see this huge pit, and there's these people mining, and they've just carrying all this stuff, and it's just almost biblical. It really is almost biblical. And then you get to a point where one of the workers has been injured, and these two people carry him up, and he's just out cold, and they're almost carrying him like Jesus. It's a very striking image, to say the least, and it's interesting that they captured it on film and displayed it here. But Powaqqatsi, for me, brilliant movie. I'd say a couple of notches below Koyaanisqatsi, but still very impactful. The Blu-ray looked fantastic, in some cases better than Koyaanisqatsi because of the nature of the footage that was filmed, and the sound was brilliant as well. Just an amazing score. So for me, I'll go back to the movie. I give the movie, I think, 4 stars out of 5. I would give the picture quality, I'd say 4.5 stars out of 5. I just think it looked incredible. Some of the shots were just beautiful. And the sound, I would probably give a 4.5 as well. Just brilliant. Had the sound turned up. I don't have surround sound or anything, and I'm no audiophile, as I always say, but it sounded brilliant to me. Now the extras in Powaqqatsi. First we have the theatrical trailer, which is great, and yeah, it was an interesting kind of. It's always interesting to see old films and then see how they were marketed to me anyway. I just find that interesting. So we've got the original theatrical trailer. We have Impact of Progress, which is a 19-minute documentary, featurette kind of thing, that was produced with the same featurette that appears on the Koyaanisqatsi Blu-ray. And it has Philip Glass and Godfrey Reggio talking about about Powaqqatsi and the meaning of it, you know, why they decided to do it, their ways of working with it. And I've kind of mentioned some of that stuff already, like Philip Glass developing the music at the same time as the movie being shot, that kind of thing. And it was a really interesting one, well worth watching if you watched the film and enjoyed it. And they also talk about the third film, which isn't in this set, but it wasn't really touched on that much, and from what I understand, it's not really in the same league as these two. But I might check it out someday. But for me, I really like that these two films are in this package because they kind of complement each other perfectly, I think, with the first one again being about the northern hemisphere, the second one focusing on the southern hemisphere. You really get a world view from these two movies, and it's a great experience to watch both of them, I think. And then we also have Anima Mundi, which is a 25-minute film directed by Godfrey Reggio and scored by Philip Glass, and it came out in 1992, and it was kind of made in the conjunction with the WWF, the World Wildlife Fund, not the World Wrestling Federation, and it's about animals, and you know, there's lots of stock footage of animals and nature, but really focusing on the animals, and I guess kind of to kind of shine a light on the importance of you know, the animal kingdom. And there were some fantastic shots. From what I understand, a lot of it they took stock footage, and Philip Glass scored it, and Godfrey Reggio directed how it was done. I'm not sure entirely what the process was behind that. And I thought it was great. I really enjoyed it. It was short, so it wasn't too hard to get through. At times with Powaqqatsi, I was getting a tiny bit kind of, this is lingering a bit too long, whereas with Koyaanisqatsi I was just enthralled the whole way through. That's probably why I took it down a few notches, because it didn't keep my full attention for the whole time. But with Anima Mundi, it's quite short, so it's easy to get through. And if you like animals, it's definitely fascinating. It goes down to like the the low cell organisms and up, and then it goes up and down. We see like sea life and proper like lions and that kind of thing, like African animals. And there's a great shot that ends the documentary of just these eyes of this animal. And I love animals, and I think there's something so mysterious and majestic about them a lot of the times. And so I loved it, absolutely loved Anima Mundi. And I thought it was brilliant that they released it on this Blu-ray, and it looked great as well. So that was a real fantastic feature for the Powaqqatsi Blu-ray. So the final thing to talk about to round up this whole Blu-ray review is the booklet. 2 films by Godfrey Reggio. Now this booklet is very thick. I'll find out how many pages it is now. It is 72 pages long, and it is a fantastic booklet. If you want to see kind of a few pages of it, you could check out my unboxing video of the whole box set down here. If you just click on that, it'll take you straight to it, and I'll put a link in the description box below as well. And you can check out kind of a bit more of what this booklet looks like. But it's just a fantastic book with some great pictures from the films and some great writing. It took me like about an hour to read this as well, which was it really again makes you feel like it's really worth the money. First we have Nature Disrupted, modern. I don't know how to say that word. Modernity. Modernity. That is. I'm going to keep this in. That's modern. No, that's weird. I'm going to keep this in. Who cares? Not. These long reviews aren't getting that many views lately. Modernity, I guess. Defamiliarized. Reggio's docu-diptych of Changing Times by Anton Bittel. So this was kind of about Godfrey Reggio, and see, I've read so much of this, it's hard for me to remember exactly which article's about what. Yeah, this really goes into Godfrey Reggio and his him coming up with the Koyaanisqatsi in the movies and the concept, and again we get pictures to illustrate some of these things, and it's a great read. And that's from a kind of a freelance film critic. And then the next one we have our contemporary reviews. I enjoyed these. These are kind of reviews that came out of the film at the time of its release, so it's interesting to see that in comparison with how it is received now. Untold Tales of Koyaanisqatsi by Ron Gold. This article originally appeared in a March 1984 issue of American Cinematographer. This is about Ron Fricke, the cinematographer, and it is a fantastic article. It is really long, and it goes into Ron Fricke's kind of whole career, but mainly kind of the things that he was doing with Koyaanisqatsi and Powaqqatsi. Yeah, just a really long article that's wrote really well. I enjoyed this probably the most out of the whole booklet. And Ron Gold did the location and distribution research on Koyaanisqatsi from 1980 to 1982, so it was written by someone who was kind of involved in the film as well. Then we have Glass Films by Philip Brooks. Philip Brooks, why did I say that? That's a wrestler, CM Punk. It's probably because I thought of Philip Glass. Glass Films by Michael Brook, I apologise. This is an article about Philip Glass and his music and how he came to do film music. There's kind of a history of his whole career, really. It's actually quite interesting, and it does cover the Koyaanisqatsi and Powaqqatsi films in particular. Then we have Francis Ford Coppola, producer by Peter Cowie. This is kind of an article about Francis Ford Coppola and how he got into kind of producing films and putting his name on films to help other filmmakers out. And again, that's kind of what he did with Koyaanisqatsi. He attached his name to that, and with Powaqqatsi, he brought George Lucas in as well to attach his name to the film. So that's an interesting article that kind of just looks over every film that kind of Francis Ford Coppola has lent his name to in order to help. And then we have an article about Animal Mundi, which kind of tells you about how that short film came about and the reasoning behind it and so on, the World Wildlife Fund. And that was by Jean-Baptiste Goyon. And then finally we have about the transfer, production credits, and special thanks. So it tells you, exactly what was done with these particular transfers, using what scanner, and transfer supervised by Godfrey Reggio in 1999, etc. So this booklet is absolutely brilliant and such a great addition to the set. So for me, my final rating for this Blu-ray is a 4.5 stars out of 5. Absolutely fantastic release, just great attention to detail, fantastic packaging, great transfers, the movies look great, there's some cool extras there as well, fantastic presentation with the box set again, and just the uniqueness of it as well, coming in this kind of almost CD size case with these cool digipacks, I think really makes it stand out as well from the norm. And Arrow Films have done a fantastic job with this. I love the Arrow Academy releases. I have another one back home, the Cinema Paradiso release, which is another brilliant one. So I'm really loving the Arrow Academy releases lately, and this one is just an absolute amazing standout release, so you should definitely go pick it up. It just came out. If you're a fan of the films, it is a no-brainer, but I would definitely recommend a blind buy because seriously, if you're a fan of film and film history, this is an important film, I think, particularly Koyaanisqatsi. So go check it out. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this review. Overall, I'm really happy with this set, and I highly recommend it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.
He says he's really cool, but I think he's a tool. Even though I'm sure he's a quite nice guy, really. He's a quite nice guy, really.